So yes, there are virtual events like these during this pandemic times helps us acquire more knowledge of what are the current trends revolving around the globe. Wow, what eminent speakers, what big knowledge for entrepreneurs. So next, I would like to invite Tiffany Shears, PPC Accounts Manager, Absolute Digital. She is here to share a few words on the potential pitfalls of machine learning and AI in the search world and how to get around them as well. And yes, we have been having a lot of speakers speaking about all social media marketing, AI, big brands, big trends coming in the forthcoming years. And now we have Tiffany here to share a few words on about that topic. Yes, over to you, Tiffany.
Hello everybody and welcome to my talk today, where I'm going to be discussing the potential pitfalls of machine learning and AI in a search world and how to get around them. I'm a PPC account manager at Absolute Digital Media, so I do use a lot of machine learning in my everyday life at work, which is where I've kind of come up with these sort of issues and solutions. I am a big fan of machine learning. I think it is an amazing thing to have because what it does is it automates all the smaller tasks that are very time consuming, like bidding, and it gives us more time to work on strategy and testing and being more creative with our ad copies. When I first started working in digital media, there wasn't much bidding out there. The bidding strategies we have today, there wasn't a lot of machine learning. And I always found it was really difficult because when the performance dropped on an account, it was hard to figure out why, because you had a lot of ad schedule bids and you had a lot of device bids and location bids, and you had the actual bidding of the keywords. And a lot of time was spent on trying to figure out how to optimize those bids to get the performance back on. And I never had the time to look at the important stuff like the strategy and the ad copy and the campaign optimizations to kind of come up with a way of how can I make this account better, which for us as digital marketers is really, really important because there's always that how can we make an account better. A couple of years ago, I did a coding course in introduction to coding with Google. And there was one thing that the instructor said to me, and it's kind of always stuck in my mind. And that is machine learning and AI is only as intelligent as the person who made it. And I don't think I've ever heard words about AI that is that true. Like all people, we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. And as machine learning and AI are made by people, they are no exception to that rule. So as digital marketers, it's really important that we don't fight machine learning and that we don't trust machine learning completely, but we learn to work with machine learning to help it work at its most optimal. So these are sort of some of the topics that I'm going to be going over today, and I'm going to be going over solutions to those potential pitfalls that I have found in my career as an account manager. Last year, Google changed the way that exact match keywords worked to include close variants. They did announce that our keywords would not compete against each other in the auction, also known as keyword cannibalization. However, I have found this in my experience to be untrue. I have seen many occasions where we have search terms coming through various keywords at different average CPCs. I have also seen this have a negative effect on the ad relevance score. This is an example of how these search terms work on Google now with exact match. You can see that infant sweatshirt now comes through infant shirt, which on exact match previously, that would never trigger. And you can see here where I've pulled an example from one of my accounts from about a year ago, and we can see bespoke patches have come through both custom patches and custom patches UK on different match types at different average CPCs. There's a 19p difference in these average CPCs, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when that's per click, it really adds up on the account to a wasted budget. It's also important to note that I actually have a keyword for bespoke patches in this account, which is actually the cheapest average CPC, and it should be coming through that keyword. Responsive search ads are a great thing to have on Google. They help you test different headline variations and description lines to come up with the best possible variation. One of the downsides to RSAs, though, is like expensive text ads, you have to have the keywords in the headlines to get that good ad relevance score and to have a good ad score. If you have various keywords in one ad group, it becomes impossible to make sure that the correct headline is going to show up for the correct search term or keyword. You have no control over this. The top example is one that I have seen on my account previously. So you can see that you've got shop online, buy blue shoes online, and buy red shoes today. Now, for us as PPCers, the ads is how we sell our product. That is how we say to people, you need to buy our product or you need to take out our service. And one of the most frustrating things is we only have a small amount of character limits to get that message across. So when your ad is not showing an order that is making it make sense, that is saying to customers, come and buy from us, come and use our service, this is why, it also almost kind of makes the actual ad itself useless. The bottom is what we want to see. You want to see in headline 1, the keyword. In headline 2, you want to see a USP. And in headline 3, you want to see a call to action. That is how we're going to convince people to come to our website. Dynamic search ads are another great tool on Google. What they do is they work different to search ads. So with search ads, you are targeting particular keywords. With dynamic search ads, you are targeting a web page and the content on that web page. So Google will scan your web page and they will use the content to match it up with a search term, and they will create a dynamic headline that is relevant to that search term. This is how I would set out a dynamic search ad campaign. You've got the DSA in a campaign on its own. You have the ad groups underneath that's relevant to your product or your service, and then you target an actual URL that's relevant to that ad group. Google will then scan the website content, match it to a search query, and come up with a relevant dynamic heading. If dynamic search ads are not set up correctly, they can eat away at the budget. If you have other keywords in your account, dynamic search ads can show for the same keywords that you have in the account, and again cause that keyword cannibalization, that thing that as PPCers we don't want to see, because it will increase our cost and our CPLs. There is also an option to target all pages, which is something that I would never recommend doing. The reason being is because if you have a terms and conditions page, you do not want that to match up with Google. The reason being is not relevant to what you provide or what you're actually selling. So again, it's going to waste that budget. Search terms on shopping, again, works different to Google. So again, rather than targeting a keyword, you are targeting your product title. Google will scan your product title and the information in your feed and match that up to relevant searches on Google. Here is an example of a search that I did on Google previously. So you can see that we've typed in buy cheap sofa and a designer sofa has come up. Now, this is not something that you want to see on Google. The reason being is because they are designer. And when you think cheap, you think psychologically something low quality that I can buy lots of, like shopping at Primark. You go there, you know it's cheap, you know it's going to last long, but you want to buy it because you know that it's affordable. Now, designer sofas don't want to be coming up for those sorts of search terms because it's going to damage their brand, because it's going to make them seem cheap when they're not. They're high quality, high end, which is the opposite of cheap. This is another example that I've seen. They sell badges and they're showing up for diabetes bracelet, a waste of spend. If no one clicks on it, it will affect the low CTR. If people click on it, then it will waste spend. So it's a lose-lose situation all the way around. So those are the sorts of problems that I've come up with. Well, how do you solve them? One of the best ways to do it with your search is to have granular ad groups. This will allow you to control which search term comes through which keyword. You can then have some sort of control. This is an example of how it should be set out. You've got the blue shoes campaign, the blue shoes ad group, and the blue shoes keyword. That gives you that sort of ad relevancy. So you're making sure your keyword is relevant to your ad in your ad group, and you can have that control because you can then add negatives against the less relevant keywords. Breakout by match type. That way you can add in your cross-match negatives and again, force those search terms to the most relevant keyword and stop that keyword cannibalization. This would be how you added a cross-match negative. You see, you've got the phrase ad group there, and you've got the exact match counterpart as an exact match negative against the ad group. This is an example of what you would see. You'd see that you've got custom badges embroidered UK as a negative against the broad match modifier keyword, and also the less relevant exact match keywords. Responsive search ads. You'd put in 15 headlines and 4 description lines, and Google will come up with the best variations. Amazing. But how do you make sure that it's showing up in that order that you need it to show up in? Well, the first thing you could do is pin your headlines. So you would pin headlines in your keyword headlines in 1, 2, and 3, and your call to actions in 13, 14, and 15. All the other headlines will then rotate in position 2. So what you're doing here is you're saying to Google, these are the headlines, come up with the best variation, but this is the order that I want it to show on Google. So with dynamic search ads, what you have is you have an ad group for each service. That URL, that would make sure that it's relevant to the headline and relevant to what you're matching up to. If you put it in its own budget, you can then control the budget that it's using. And also, if you put all keywords as an exact match negative against the DSA campaigns, the keywords that are in your account, that means that you can stop that keyword cannibalization. Now onto my favorite topic, the shopping. Shopping really is amazing, but not used correctly, and you can see a lot of wasted spend. You can add negatives. So an example that I showed you, you could add a phrase match negative for cheap against a shopping campaign, but there is a maximum amount of ad group negatives you can add to an ad group campaign. It's really hard to reach, but it is possible. I have done it before and it's really frustrating. So what else can you do? The most effective way to control what's coming through your shopping is to optimize the titles. Now, how you optimize those titles will depend on what's important to your business. You need to make sure that the keyword that you want to show for is in your title. If you have different types of sofas and different sizes, you want to add that in as well. And if more people are searching couches rather than sofas, adding couches, because that will mean that you're going to be showing to the people that are searching. If you do add in the particular sofas and the different sizes, only do this if you have a different URL for each size or each type. Otherwise, it will cause problems in the merchant center. These are all different examples of very optimized titles. What I will say, though, is there's no one size fits all when it comes to titles. So you need to test different titles. A good way to test different titles is to add supplementary feeds. The good thing about supplementary feeds is you can have more than one feed running at the same time and testing different titles. This is an example of an account that I've optimized the titles. This was the one that was shown to diabetes earlier, where it was not relevant to what they do. We can now see that after optimizing the titles, we are getting more relevant badge searches coming through the campaign. And this is an example of an account that we've taken on where we've optimized the titles. We can see the amazing increase in conversions and value and conversion value cost. This is all by just changing those titles through a supplementary feed. The good thing about the supplementary feeds is you can change the title without changing the website, which is how you can test it without affecting the website itself. So you're probably thinking, all this information is great, but what do I need to do differently? Well, I would say add more negatives. Put your keywords in granular ad groups and break up by match type. That way you can add cross-match negatives and add negatives to less relevant keywords, so you can stop that keyword cannibalization that we don't want to see. Put your ad targets in different ad groups. Optimize your titles, use supplementary feeds, and more importantly, test new titles. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Tiffany, for enlightening us on potential pitfalls of machine learning and AI in the search world. Thank you for joining this DigiConf 2021 and have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.